Shadow of the Erdtree. What an excellent expansion. Easily one of the best DLCs that I've ever played. But, how are the bosses? And how do they rank up against one another? Well, in today's video, I'm going to be showing you my personal ranking of all 11 Remembrance bosses in this DLC. I'm going to be sticking to main bosses only because otherwise we would be here forever, and obviously this video will spoil the main bosses of the DLC, but it's already been out for some time, so this should be a no-brainer, but you've been warned regardless. But without further ado, here is my ranking. Coming in at number 11, at the very bottom, is Commander Gaius. I mean, come on, was there anyone else that deserves this bottom ranking but him? To start, he has absolutely terrible hitboxes and attack chains that at times simply feel undodgeable. And honestly, my main gripe with this fight is just one move, and that's his charge. At first, I thought you had to dodge it the same way that you dodged the hippo charge, where you have to run to either side and dodge at the very last moment. But no, what you actually have to do is dodge into him. Except this doesn't work about 60% of the time, and sometimes, because it's a charge attack and his hitbox is constantly moving, this attack can actually hit you twice or even 3 times, depending on when you dodge. Overall, the biggest compliment that I can give to this boss is that it isn't just another Tree Sentinel reskin. It may be a mounted boss, but his moveset is entirely different, so I can give some bonus points for originality. However, what is still here just isn't very fun to fight. And while there are some moves that are fun to dodge and master, particularly some of his gravity attacks are decent, and you know, the bash that he does with his hippo is sometimes pretty fun as well. But the overall experience of fighting this boss is just not great. It's not an awful boss, but when I replay this DLC, this will be one of the bosses that I am not looking forward to revisiting. Thank God it was optional. Coming in at number 10 is Shadow of the Erdtree. Much like Commander Gaius, the biggest compliment for this boss is that it isn't just another Erdtree avatar. It is a new boss with a new moveset, but again, what's here just isn't great. There are a lot of AoE attacks with thorns that build up blood loss, which is just so annoying. And what's even more annoying is the fact that this boss has 3 health bars. When I went into this DLC, I thought that Mesmer would have 2 health bars, Radon as well. I mean, you look at the main game, you have Melania, who has 2 health bars, Radagon and Elden Beast, 2 health bars, even Rennala has 2 health bars. Plenty of bosses have 2 health bars because, you know, they're grand, they're important to the story. But no, Mesmer doesn't have 2 health bars, Radon doesn't have 2 health bars, it's only 1. And in fact, every single boss in this DLC has only 1 health bar, except Shadow of the Erdtree, and it doesn't just have 2, it has 3? I was shocked when I saw it revive, but I was even more shocked when I saw it revive again. While this is ridiculous, the actual moveset is okay. Some moves are fun to dodge, and having the head be a weak point for the boss is pretty fun and switches up the flow of combat a little bit. And the design is also really cool. I mean, just look at this guy, he looks awesome. Unfortunately, however, I don't think I'll be very excited to return to this boss later on. It's a shame, because if this boss had 1 health bar with more health, this would have been a much better boss and probably wouldn't have ranked this low. Now, coming in at number 9, we have Putrescent Knight. This boss has excellent build-up. I mean, arriving in the fissure for the first time, then going through the whole area, and then at the end having to jump off this ledge and falling all the way to the bottom of this chasm, then seeing this guy ride out on a skeleton-looking horse. I mean, it was amazing. But the boss itself is okay. There are some pretty cool moves here. While this is a mounted boss, it's unique in the sense that it doesn't remain on its mount the whole fight. He can sometimes jump off his mount and attack you, then have his mount charge at you afterwards. It's really creative. However, some moves are a bit stupid, such as that Frost Flame AoE attack he has, but besides that, this is a pretty decent fight, if a bit forgettable. Now, at number 8, we have Ramina, Saint of the Bud. The moment I stepped into this boss arena, I noticed two things. Wow, her design is incredible, and wow, why does she have Scarlet Rot buildup? The moment I saw that Scarlet Rot buildup, a part of me kind of died inside, but it actually isn't as bad as I thought it would be. Only certain attacks she has causes Scarlet Rot buildup, and while it is annoying, it did lead to a very memorable and exciting boss fight in my case specifically. I got her down pretty low, but I was out of heals, and she hit me with the Scarlet Rot and it was starting to build up, and I was taking damage over time. So it kind of became a race against time where I had to beat her before the Scarlet Rot beat me, and when I did beat her, the excitement I felt was incredible. Although I do think that this boss would have been better without the Scarlet Rot, her moves themselves are pretty decent, if a bit janky, with the hitboxes, but it's a pretty good boss, and it's actually pretty unique because she can attack you from 3 different parts of her body: the scorpion tail, the centipede head, or just her weapon itself. And it was cool having to keep your eyes on multiple areas that she could attack from. But generally, her moveset is just fine, and her exploding butterflies are a bit annoying to deal with as well. A decent boss that, in my case specifically, was extremely memorable. Coming in at number 7, we have Meter, Mother of Fingers. I should give a warning for this boss. I only beat her in 2 tries, and I think I was pretty overleveled for this encounter. This was actually the very last boss of the DLC for me. I'd already beaten Radon before I got to Meter, so I may or may not have had the intended experience, I don't know, but what I will say is that the build-up for this fight is phenomenal, and her design is just disgusting in the best of ways. It kind of reminds me of a boss you would see in Bloodborne, and that is a massive compliment. Some of the laser attacks are pretty cool as well, and I really like this boss in the sense that traditionally when you fight one of those large beast enemies, the joke is that you kind of have to get up behind them and just attack them from there constantly. But this boss actually punishes you for attacking its weak point for too long, which is really creative. Overall, it's a pretty great boss that I didn't enjoy as much as I could have. I do think I should have fought this boss a lot earlier, but a great boss nonetheless. Now at number 6, we have Divine Beast Dancing Lion. Most people's first boss in this DLC, and it's a pretty strong one. His base moveset is really well designed and fun to master, although some issues that I have with this boss come in its second phase. While I do think the concept of having a boss interchanging between different elemental attacks at random is really smart, I just don't think it was executed perfectly here, as certain elemental phases were just a bit unfun to deal with, particularly the electricity and somewhat the ice phase as well. The actual moveset doesn't change very much in the second phase, and instead, this boss just gains a lot of new aftershock and AoE attacks, which is actually a trend that I've noticed in this DLC. Many bosses have second phases that are really just their first phase, but now they do an aftershock effect after every attack. Or maybe they gain a new AoE attack, or now their damage builds up a certain effect. However, their moveset remains largely the same. On one hand, I understand that it's hard to make a proper, fully redesigned second phase for every boss, but it would have been nice to see this at least once or twice throughout the DLC, as it feels like every boss suffers from this issue, including this one. I do like this boss, and I am excited to fight him again on a replay, but it could have been so much more. Now, breaking the top 5, we have Radon, Promised Consort. Radon, some people might be surprised that he isn't higher on my list, and I was actually surprised too. He's the final boss of the DLC, and his first phase is absolute perfection. Just flawless. Combos that are long but not too long and give you plenty of room to attack. Gravity attacks that are also fun to dodge, and what's really incredible about this boss is the way that it takes an existing boss and keeps their moveset familiar, but not exactly the same. I just refought Star Scourge Radon on a New Game Plus, and it was really cool seeing similar moves to the Promised Consort version, yet slightly changed. This really isn't just a boss reskin, this is a whole new fight, and I really applaud FromSoft for creating an encounter that is similar, yet so different. So why is he only number 5? because all of this is true for his first phase. His second phase kinda sucks. Like I said earlier about the dancing lion, his second phase is mostly the same as his first phase, but now he has an AoE light blast after every move, and I mean pretty much every move. When people complain about this DLC being too hard, this may be one of the examples that actually holds some merit. And no, this isn't a skill issue, okay? I have beaten this boss, and I will beat him multiple times when I replay this DLC, but I really do think that they could have and should have toned it back just a little bit with the second phase, okay? Just a little bit. Still, it's a great encounter to end the DLC on, but, you know, I just wish that Miyazaki would have chilled a little bit when designing this guy. Now, coming in at number 4, we have Midra, Lord of Frenzied Flame. This boss probably has my favorite build-up to a fight in any FromSoft game. There's probably something I'm not considering, but man, just arriving at the Abyssal Woods and having to sneak through the grass to get past those, whatever you call them guys, I don't know, was just amazing. And if you know anything about me, I'm kind of a sucker for foggy and gloomy environments, and I also love the forest, so having the two put together was very special to see. But after you progress through this environment, you make it to a manor where a ghost is telling you to turn and leave as soon as you can. So naturally, you do the exact opposite, and you continue through, going through secret passages, having to move this giant bookshelf so you can parkour on it, all while having to deal with inquisitors shooting rune arcs at you. But then, you make it to the end of this manor, and you step into the boss room, and there is just this weak, scrawny, ghoulish figure. So you run up to him, and you kill him in a couple of hits naturally, but you just know that something is about to happen, and oh my god, when he transforms into the actual boss fight and you see him become the Lord of Frenzied Flame just like you could do in the base game, man, that was a special experience. And it helps that the boss itself is also really, really great. A lot of 3 to 4 hit sword combos with slightly delayed attacks and ranged attacks that are actually fun to dodge as well. My one and only complaint with this boss is that the madness buildup is quite annoying, and I do think this boss would have been better if that was cut, but had his actual attacks do slightly more damage instead, as I feel that he could have been a bit harder than he actually is. But apart from that, this boss is just incredible, and I am so looking forward to fighting him again and again. Alright, top 3. The top 3 bosses of the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. Coming in at number 3, we have Baal the Dread. This is the best dragon fight FromSoft have ever made, beating Midir, beating Divine Dragon, beating Dragonlord plus Sigisax. This is my number 1, and a lot of people's number 1, but for very good reason. I'll be honest, when I was progressing through the Jagged Peak and I saw all these dragons, I got a bit annoyed, because the base game already reused so many dragons, and now they have even more here. Yeah, I was not very keen on it, but let's just say, the moment I stepped into that arena with Baal, all of that changed. This boss is just incredible. A massive health pool, fun attacks to master, a second phase with plenty of AoE damage, but that isn't a bad thing here because his attacks are pretty well telegraphed, and some moves that are just a pure spectacle. I cannot wait to fight this guy again, and I believe that he will easily go down as one of the best bosses in FromSoft history, and we are only at number 3. Alright, number 2, we have Mesmer the Impaler. When everyone saw the trailer for this DLC, I'm sure we all thought that this guy would be the final boss of the DLC, and even though he wasn't, he was still a magnificent fight, with great build-up, a fun moveset, and a strong second phase as well. There really isn't much to say about this boss. I mean, his design is great, his moveset is great, and he's just a great boss. I will say I do wish that maybe he had a bit more health, but that's a minor complaint, and otherwise I feel that this is another one of FromSoft's best bosses. Fighting Mesmer genuinely feels like a duel. There's a perfect amount of windows to attack, while still making sure that you have plenty of attacks to dodge as well. And going back to the build-up, it's quite strong too, and his arena is really cool looking, with this kind of gothic church vibe. Overall, just a really, really strong fight, but not quite enough to reach my number one. That spot is reserved for Rolana Twin Moon Knight. Seeing Rolana at number one may be a shock for some people. She isn't the most grand boss, doesn't have the best build-up, and certainly isn't the coolest looking. But when it comes to bosses in Souls games, my number one priority is their mechanics, how it feels to fight them. And in that aspect alone, Rolana is easily my favorite in the DLC. Her attack patterns feel impossible to predict at first. Seemingly endless attack combos where just as soon as you think it's over, she throws out one more attack. But the more you fight her, the more you start to see through this facade. You start to understand when her combos end, when to attack and when not to. And this may sound like most Souls bosses, you know, the more you fight them, the more you understand, but it's amplified here because of the sheer number of attacks that Rolana can throw out. But none of them ever feel too unfair. The hitboxes are just right, the timings all make sense, with a good balance of delayed attacks and non-delayed attacks. I don't remember the last time I've had this much fun fighting a Souls boss. I would never get mad or upset whenever I died to her because it just meant that I would get to fight her more. As much as I like Mesmer or a lot of these other bosses, there would be times where I would die and get a bit frustrated, but not here. I fought Rolana for about 2 hours with a large smile on my face the whole time, and she is easily my favorite boss of the DLC, and can easily be a contender for the best boss in the entire game. So, there you have it. There's my ranking. Let me know what you think and leave your own rankings down in the comments below. But, yeah, that's all I have. Thank you for watching.